Hello and welcome to People and Profit. I'm Charles Pellegrin. Coming up in the show, checkpoints, occupation, and blocked financial flows. We'll speak to a Palestinian entrepreneur about the challenges of running a business in the West Bank. Keeping interest rates low, then pushing them up. We'll zero in on Turkey's tumultuous fight against skyrocketing inflation. Leaving the EU, abandoning the euro, restricting immigration. In Germany, the far right's ideas fuel fears among businesses. Well, Israel's offensive in Gaza following the October 7th attacks by Hamas is reverberating into the West Bank. While not directly involved in the conflict, the Palestinian territory's economy lies in tatters. The World Bank estimates that its GDP could fall by 6% this year. The number of jobs has fallen 32%, and the unemployment rate has nearly doubled to 30%. Well, one major reason for this, restrictions in freedom of movement. After the October 7th attacks, Israel revoked work permits for 130,000 Palestinians in the West Bank, eliminating a crucial source of income for the territory's 3 million inhabitants. But as our guest will soon explain, hardship and violence have been a feature of economic life in the Palestinian territories long before the latest conflict. Her name is Amal Daraghmeh Masri. She is the CEO and editor-in-chief of Middle East Business News and of Ougarit Group, based in Ramallah in the West Bank. Thank you very much for joining us on People and Profit.
Thank you for having me.
Can you give us a sense of how hard it is to run a business in the West Bank today, especially as it relates to transporting people or merchandise from one point to another?
Indeed, yes. Harsh is the proper word to describe the economic sphere in the Palestinian territories in general, and in particular the West Bank and Jerusalem. One of the main obstacles that we're facing, not since October 7th, but since 75 years of Israeli occupation of Palestine, it's been number one rule is divide and rule in the Palestinian territories, means that we have our territories have been divided into small cities and areas with over, at some point, 700 checkpoints inside a very small territory such as the West Bank. It's not more than 5,800 kilometers square. So it's really a small territory compared to the number of checkpoints that is imposed in the area. So restrictions of movement is a great deal for us. In addition to the fact that the economy is down of at least 50% to 60% since, in particular, October 7th, as well as the loss of jobs of tens of thousands of Palestinians who used to work inside Israel.
And can you give us a sense of, you mentioned that these checkpoints, these conditions existed before October 7th and the latest flare-up in violence. But how much worse are things now then?
It's much worse in the sense of, the world is looking at what's happening in Gaza, already doing nothing of, to stop the genocide happening in Gaza. So the Israeli authorities are taking advantage of the absence of, a foreign eye having a look at what's happening. That the settlers, the terrorist settlers who live inside the West Bank of over 140 illegal settlements are stealing the land, the water, everything they can put their hands on is another hardship for us. So it makes it very dangerous to move from a place to another. You lose more and more of your lands. I come from a village nearby between Ramallah and Nablus, and I can't go there whenever I want. They closed all the entrances or let's say most of the entrances of cities and villages in order to restrict the movement of people unless they open the gates. It's really like a big prison really. This is what it looks like now, more and more in the West Bank. So now, with the settlers who are unleashed everywhere, they are fully armed, making our life like hell. This is what they want, hoping that we will leave our lands because we are threatened all time long and we don't feel safe. Our businesses being, at the minimum possible working. So we need to be really survival and to love so much Palestine that we would want to stay here.
You put the blame of the economic situation in Palestine squarely at Israel's doorsteps, whether it's the checkpoints or whether it's the finance minister currently withholding the Palestinian Authority's import tax revenue. Israel is the major determinant here, but do you see a way in which Israel's policies could change in the future?
I don't think so, because we have been through this since 75 years, and it's only getting worse and worse. And as you just mentioned, the holding the money, the Palestinian money, because why would Israel collect our customs and taxes? Because we don't have any borders, we don't have airports, we don't have ports, nothing. I mean, we have to go through Israeli borders each time, and that's where people pay the taxes for their goods coming into the West Bank. So they hijack our money, they steal our land, and then they say, okay, you should do better. They steal our water and they resell it for us. I mean, at least we lose per year the potential of $9 billion because of the occupation. And Israel profits at least $40 billion because they are occupying our lands. So it's not easy, but the private sector is still yet surviving so far.
Amal Daraghmeh Masri, you are the CEO of Middle East Business News and of the Ougarit Group based in Ramallah in the West Bank. Thanks for talking to us on People and Profit.
Thank you.
Well, inflation persists in Turkey in spite of an aggressive rate hike policy since May 2023. In January, inflation grew close to 65% compared to the previous year. This is an unusually high consumer price increase, partly because of political decisions made by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. To get a better understanding of the situation in Turkey, France 24's Yuka Roy joins us now. Hi, Yuka.
Hi, Charles.
Give us a sense of the trajectory of consumer prices in Turkey over the past few years.
Well, inflation has long been stuck well above Turkey's official target of 5%. And since 2017, it's been in two-digit figures most of the time. Now, the COVID crisis hit Turkey's tourism and hospitality sector hard, but the economy rebounded strongly, thanks in part to government stimulus, as well as the central bank's measures to make it easier to borrow money. But that, coupled with a weaker currency, has pushed up the cost of living. Price growth picked up pace sharply in 2022, peaking at over 85% in October of that year. The cost of everything from food to drinks to housing has been rising 5 to 7% every month, with annualized inflation still at close to 65%.
Well, most experts agree that Erdogan's unorthodox views on the topic of inflation actually made things worse.
Well, President Erdogan long held the view that lower interest rates would lower inflation and spur more investment, create more jobs and increase exports, going against the conventional economic wisdom. He called interest rates the mother of all evil and his biggest enemy, and put pressure on the central bank to keep them low. Turkey has had 6 central bank governors since 2019. In the meantime, the Turkish lira has been in crisis. It's lost almost 80% of its value against the US dollar since then.
And he changed tack in June 2023. How's that been going?
Well, after he was re-elected for a third term, Erdogan toned down his stance, appointing a team of market-friendly financial officials and giving them more control over economic decisions. Under Hafize Gaye Erkan, who recently resigned as governor, Turkey's central bank has sharply raised its key interest rates from 8.5% a year ago to 45%. But this monetary policy U-turn has yet to bear fruit. Meanwhile, sharp increases in the minimum wage to help fight the cost of living crisis have actually fueled inflation.
Yukaroye, thank you. Well, to Germany now, where the rise of the far-right AfD party is a source of concern for political and economic life. Businesses there are worried of the vision the party has for the national economy, one that opposes free markets and immigration. Our correspondents Anne Maillet and Nick Spicer sent us this report.
This small company in eastern Germany couldn't work without them, both on the shop floor and in the warehouses. Some 30 foreigners recruited in recent years to address the shortage of qualified labor.
I started with a 5-day internship and loved it, so I immediately committed to staying.
The government has eased rules on immigration to facilitate foreign recruitment, but this region faces a problem that could make finding workers difficult again: the rise of the far right. In Brandenburg, the AfD is credited with nearly 30% of voting intentions ahead of the September regional elections. It's a nightmare for employers.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried. It's crucial for companies to take a stand and say that the far right has no place in Germany. It's equally important that we participate in the demonstrations to defend ourselves against their agenda.
For 3 weeks, millions of Germans have taken part in massive protests against the far right. And companies are finding their own ways to be heard. This supermarket chain emptied a store's shelves of foreign products to demonstrate the perils of xenophobia. The bosses of big companies are worried about the country's reputation and its entire economic model. The far-right AfD wants to abandon the euro and leave the European Union, even though Germany is among the members that has benefited the most from free trade.
The AfD wants to close borders not only to migrants, but also to goods, services, and foreign capital. This will destroy the German economic model. Half of our economic performance relies on exports, and 60% of these exports goes to Europe. But this model would no longer be possible with the far right.
According to a study, leaving the euro as the AfD would like could destroy some 2 million jobs in Germany.
That's all for this week. If you want more, you can always watch our previous episodes on France24.com. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us on social media. In the meantime, thanks for watching and stay tuned.